sure you all enjoyed Play Matters, and now we're back with our second segment, which is on lived experience, on research. And we have three amazing guests right now that are joining us. So thank you for joining us, Twinkle, Apurva, and Najid again. So thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
So both of you girls are going to start and tell us about the YES program and what you've instituted here in Peel. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so a little bit of our background is both of us are grade 11 students attending Glenford Secondary School. And we co-founded the organization Peel's Youth Engagement Society, or YES, in October of 2014. And today it's grown to over 400 students across the Peel region, and we've had youth executives and board members. And what we do at YES is try to promote different types of issues and try to get youth involved firsthand with ways that they can contribute and help solve these issues, or even, just gain awareness about the issues themselves. Something that we found is a lack of opportunity for youth themselves to get involved and have unique experiences, and learning about not only societal issues, but also global issues. And so some of the topics that we focused on with YES are environment and environmental causes, or climate change, water conservation, physical health, and the one that we have most focused on, I would say, is technology and technology safety. Yeah.
So a lot of it has been to do with the Z generation.
Absolutely.
Getting actively involved in the environment and also technology.
Yeah.
And you've been out there sharing how important it is for people to understand the health hazards that go with use of technology. Could you share some of those health hazards with us?
Exactly. So it might seem kind of strange for us as youth to be advocating for the harms that technology can actually have on our lives, because in fact we are so overexposed to all of this technology throughout our lives. But what we really have to consider is the fact that this overexposure can really have tremendous health impacts on our health and wellness as youth. And because of the fact that we are not really aware of the problems that this is causing, because we are not very well informed as the youth generation. We have access to all of this technology, but we're not informed as to the hazards that it can have on our health and wellness. So this is really what we've been trying to advocate for and promote as being youth riding representatives for our region, for the national organization Canadians for Safe Technology.
So there's been a lot of sort of pushback, in terms of, well, this is just nonsense. This isn't really the reality. Why are we pushing to get technology out of schools, or to be administered very safely, so that we have set times that we actually use technology? What sort of suggestions would you have in terms of making sure that technology doesn't harm our kids?
So one of the biggest issues, I'd say, as a student is we all have phones. We all use Facebook and Messenger. We're constantly, communicating and connecting with our friends through social media. But one of the biggest mistakes I would say that we make is keeping our devices on our bodies. So after reading a lot of articles and doing a lot of our research, we found that there is fertility, things that can go wrong with your fertility if you keep, for example, your laptop on your lap. Or, for example, there have been cases of breast cancer because of girls who keep their phone in their bras. And there's also people who keep their phones in their pockets all the time for the entire day. And there's just so many situations where radiation and overexposure to technology and these devices is causing health and wellness issues to certain individuals. And especially because we are students, in our schools we have a BYOD policy, so bring your own device, which basically means that in our schools for 7 hours every single day we have Wi-Fi. We're exposed to Wi-Fi for 7 hours for 5 days a week. And the routers that are in our schools are actually industrial routers. They're extremely harmful and have so much radiation, and this is being implemented since even kindergarten in elementary schools. And so again, from research and articles, we've seen that they've done brain scans from infants to adults and seeing how radiation impacts them. And because infants have less developed skulls, they're impacted severely by the radiation. And so it is an issue. And as students, we think that we should stand up and say, you know what, this is our health, this is our wellness, and we need to do something about it.
So, and how do your schools take to this? Because the BYOD policy was only instituted about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 8 years ago. But in that period now, we're seeing that there are a lot of problems. And how do we bring those problems to the forefront for administration and senior administration so that they begin to act on the issues and concerns that are now being brought up by your organization, which is a huge organization. It's not just youth, right?
Exactly. So C4ST is, as we mentioned, a national organization, and it's comprised of both adults and youth. So what we really have to make sure to be aware of is that the adults within the C4ST organization have tried very hard, especially focused on the appeal board, to get them to really pull back slightly on this BYOD policy, because it was suddenly rapidly implemented throughout all of the schools, elementary to high school. So what we're trying now as part of our YES organization is to really get this youth on youth information to be developed. And what we're trying to do is we as youth are educating other youth that this is in fact a serious problem. And this is why we've been hosting conferences which have had over 100 youth just listening to and being aware of the fact that this radiation is being harmfully impacting their health. And this is what we're really trying to advocate for, and really trying to get the appeal board itself to understand, because parent councils have tried and teachers have tried to get the appeal board to understand that this is an issue. But we feel that if youth actually stood up for this issue and showed that we do care, this would have a more significant impact in creating this change.
And you're actually making recommendations, right? You're actually saying that, you know, make sure that the router's off for X number of hours during the day. Can we just not use the technology during these hours? So they're realistic, right?
It would be completely absurd to just tell the appeal board, pull back on technology completely. So what we're trying to do is really trying to institute this policy of trying to limit it more so students are not overexposed to this issue.
To add on to that, we're not only trying to address the issue to the youth, we're also giving solutions. We're saying, you know what, this is an issue, we hope you understand that, and here's how you can do something to help yourself. And it's not only help yourself, it's to help others. Even if they tell their friends about this issue, if they spread their knowledge that they've gained from someone else, it helps because it creates awareness.
So how are you going about getting your word out? I mean, 400 students is a great start. Peel School Board is the second largest in the country, I believe, right? Yeah. So you know, what type of mediums are you using to get the word out to engage more students?
Right. So one thing that we're trying is partnering up with other youth organizations and reaching out to their platforms that they have, and majority of the communication that we do is through social media, because we know that people in our generation are always on Facebook. They're always on some sort of social media platform communicating and connecting. So that's the primary method that we use when, for example, hosting conferences and trying to promote the event and trying to get people to reach out. We are also in touch with C4ST, as we said. They are our primary contact for this issue, for this concern that we're trying to address. And so we also have their contacts, and they actually have a parents' council in which they're concerned parents who are also trying to, not pressure, but they're trying to, emphasize that this is an issue in their children's schools. But like Apurva's mentioned, it's not only the parent councils that will be able to make a change, it's also the students themselves that have to show some sort of, concern to the board that says, you know what, this is a pressing issue and it's impacting us directly and we want to make some sort of a change. But yeah.
So Najid, what would you do as a millennial to try and support this sort of work in terms of what the Z generation are doing now?
I think it's interesting because I'm not that much older, probably 10 years older than you guys, maybe a little more, unfortunately.
that can be a lot.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, depends on your perspective.
And it's interesting because I sort of got my teeth doing youth activism when I was as young as sort of 17, 18, and as I grew up. The big thing is I would recommend it, and again, I'm no expert, is sort of who you build your allies with and the relationships you build and the trust that you build together, and is super important, and not alienating people who have different opinions, and engaging them in real debate and real conversation and pushing the agenda forward is something that worked really well for us, the last 15 years. And that's a listen a lot. My dad always said you have 2 ears and one mouth, and I think it's probably the best piece of advice he ever gave me. So
And going back to the issue of Wi-Fi, and I can definitely understand the issue of schools, and I've heard about the studies where they say shut it off from certain times to certain times and allow and sort of control how much of it is being used. Does that really get rid of the student holding their phone and keeping it in their pocket because we're so connected? Wi-Fi isn't the only problem. We've still got cellular data coming in. You go to community centers and they've got Wi-Fi there. There are some cities that are Wi-Fi. We're hearing about Wi-Fi in the Toronto subway. So it's all around us. Not to mention at home. So where's the balance and where's the control there? Because I think it needs to go beyond the school if this is such a prevalent issue.
Yeah, we're currently trying to focus our efforts on schools themselves because students spend 7 hours a day in schools, as Twinkle had mentioned earlier. So this is really where we're trying to focus in on, because we feel that students at school have to first understand that in their education lives, they have to be able to limit their technology. So they use technology, personal lives, social lives, within education. So we really have to find a way to focus in on one area and then diversify from there.
So you can build a lot of relationships just from the show here today.
Yeah.
In terms of connections and pushing that. What about the student youth? The student trustees for the school board? Have you connected with them? Have you made those connections? Are you beginning to? I know that with C4ST, you've got a lot of research. It's really grounded in strong research. Is maybe have a newsletter that goes out to everybody, and maybe you can send it to all of your connections. But the more information you put out, the more understanding and support you'll get.
Yeah, of
right?
course. So that's what we've been trying to do with these conferences is we invite the student trustees and the parent trustees and even the Peel Board of Directors, just trying to get everybody informed and everybody aware of this issue.
And it's not just your issue. It's good that you're putting it out there, but I think it's an issue for people like me, right?
Yeah,
that are a lot older,
Yeah.
that are beginning to think about technology and think, okay, do I need to learn this? So maybe I don't need to learn about technology now. Maybe I need to just leave it alone, right?
No, of course not. I mean, technology is always going to be a huge part of our lives from here onwards. We know for a fact that we are going to be so incredibly dependent on technology in the future. And we're absolutely not saying don't use technology. We just want everyone to know that there are hazards with it and that you have to know how to use it safely, because that is really important. And for example, C4ST has taught us, or we learned from C4ST, a good way to talk about technology and radiation is actually drawing parallels with smoking and how smoking was seen a long time ago. So at first, everyone used to do it for fun, and they thought it was cool, and it was just what a lot of people did. But after research and after, I would say, several years, they realized that it causes lung cancer. It's bad for you. There's so many negative things associated with smoking. And after that, people realized and they stopped. And I think that actually, unfortunately, might be the case with radiation. Right now, we think, it's okay, it's everywhere, it's been here for so long, whatever, nothing's wrong. But in the future, and even now, the World Health Organization has said that EMR, or electromagnetic radiation, is a possible carcinogen. So it actually might be a cancer-causing, factor that causes cancer. And so, I mean, it's hard, it's an issue.
So what strategies do you put in place to make sure that you're not being harmed when you're at school and when you're at home?
Yeah, so for us, we do have cell phones, both of us, but what we really try to do is limit our use of technology by, on our cell phones, there's this setting called airplane mode. So what we actually did was, we, as youth, just conducted a small experiment where we conducted a survey where we found how many people actually put their phones on airplane mode. And we found that 77% of students actually did not put their phones on airplane modes ever. So what we found that if people just, when they're not using their phones, you just power your phone off, or if you don't want to go through that trouble, you just put that setting on airplane mode. That can make a huge difference because it intercepts those signals that are being sent from the phone to the cell tower, etc.
So you do that now, both of you?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Our phones are on airplane
Good.
mode right now. Yeah.
Good. And that's important for us to hear, because I think you have to live, what you speak about, what you
Of course.
what you say has to be put into action. So what you're doing is actually putting everything you say into action yourself in your lives.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
So
Any
what-
words of wisdom?
I was going to ask another question, and that's, you're working on this as one initiative. Off the top, you were talking about the other things that you were trying to engage your student population on. Like, can you share some words about some of the other things you may be working on with this organization?
Yeah, so what we've primarily focused on is health and wellness itself. So that's what we did throughout the last year. So what we really did was connect this aspect of technology to health and wellness. So we also did things on food and nutrition and making sure you have a balanced lifestyle along with this aspect of technology. So what our organization PLCS really does is focus on these different issues that are prevalent in society and really try to raise awareness, because people have a right to know about these issues, and this is what we're really trying to advocate for.
So Najid, in terms of the millennials then, how do you feel now about all this technology not being such a great thing and being a health hazard?
I come up from a family of medical professionals, so this is not the first time I'm hearing about this stuff. I think there's a certain reliance or potentially dependency on a lot of technology, and it's not something I know much about, but it's interesting to hear that these young women are so passionate about. It's nice to hear about an issue of really of big importance, or many issues in their cases. And it's nice to see the younger generation really getting involved and engaging in social good and social engagement.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we're going now to a break to listen to one of our artists.
Ba